This portion of NBC Reports is brought to you by Johnson's Step Saver with self-stripping action.
A week ago, we damp mopped this half of the floor with this Mop and Shine product, and this half with Johnson's new Step Saver with self-stripping action. I'll add black heel marks, a tough floor care problem. Now, a new coat of both products. With self-stripping Step Saver, the new coat dissolves the old, loosens the dirt, even the black heel marks. Self-stripping Step Saver cleans deep, shines bright, ends buildup.
Deep in a bug-infested jungle, these men came to prove the effectiveness of a backyard insect fogger. Raid Yard Guard. It kills flying insects up to 20 feet away. Yard Guard clears bugs out in minutes, keeps them away for hours. It worked in this backyard, it'll work in yours. Clears bugs out in minutes, keeps them away for hours. Raid Yard Guard. It's jungle tested.
You wouldn't think that this was a prune orchard only a few years ago. Now, if you shop here, you can buy scuba diving equipment, a simulated mink coat, a digital watch, an orchid, a haircut, a bank loan. That's Cal Corin over there. When he was growing up, they didn't have frozen foods or TV dinners. No one had ever heard of a credit card or an expense account. The bull mowers. They remember when people died of diseases like smallpox, typhoid, and pneumonia. Linda Lappin grew up in this world. You'll see Linda and Cal and the bull mowers again. Around us out there is San Jose. Once, long ago, it was a Spanish pueblo. Now they say it's the fastest growing city in California. In fact, it's growing so fast that one company gives people who buy maps of the city a new overlay every month just to keep up with the changes. Is this progress? A lot of people aren't as sure as they once were, but this much is certain. None of this would have happened if it hadn't been for a revolution that has taken place, much of it in my lifetime. A revolution of technology. It's changed the way we live and work. It's changed the way we think and act and feel. You think of this. The television set you're watching hadn't been invented when I was born. Pictures hadn't begun to talk. The tape that's recording my voice hadn't been invented. The jet plane that brought me here to San Jose crossed the continent in 5.5 hours. When I was a boy, the train took 4.5 days. There's never been a revolution quite like this one before. A man named Kenneth Boulding put it this way: the date that divides history into two equal parts is well within living memory. Of himself, Boulding said, almost as much has happened since I was born as happened before. That's what this program is all about. Here are the Bullmores, Lawrence and Martha. Martha, she's 74. Her family came to this valley almost 100 years ago from Cleveland. Her father was a machinist who installed marine engines on ships in the Great Lakes. Lawrence Bullmore, 79 years old. His father served with the British Army in India. His mother was Mexican, born in Los Angeles. He was a ferry boat chief engineer, retired now. He met Martha at a dance one night, almost 60 years ago.
I went there, and I knew most of the people there, and talked with them, so forth, and I made several dances, and I saw this woman, young lady, excuse me. And I asked one of them, I said, "Who is that?" He said, "That's Miss Bartley." So I said, "All right, I'll go over and dance." So I went over and asked her for a dance, told her I was Lawrence Bullmore. She got up and danced with me, and I guess we danced several dances. And that was the beginning of it. I asked her if I could come Sunday, and I did. And I started courting her from that time on.
We'd walk out on Sunday, and sometimes, we'd bring the horse and buggy, and we'd go for a ride. You could take a lunch along for yourself, and then a bag of grain for the horse. It was very leisurely. People took a little longer to get acquainted, perhaps.
One time we came home and her father or mother or somebody was upset, I don't know. We never was explained to us, but they didn't want me around anymore. Well, we were in love with each other, and we eloped, and we're married in Redwood City. And I'm inclined to think it was rather successful, because next September we'll have been married 58 years.
When they were married, Martha Bullmore didn't have a refrigerator or a dishwasher. She washed clothes in a tub with a washboard. She'd never heard of a deep freeze or a detergent. When he was growing up, Lawrence didn't know anybody who had a private phone. There were no electric lights in his house. When he was born, the Wright brothers had not yet flown their airplane at Kitty Hawk. He was 19 when he saw his first airplane. It was piloted by a boy he'd known in school.
It was a Sunday afternoon, and we were playing outside. My father was having his little afternoon snooze, and we went in and called Father to come out, Papa, rise up there in his airplane. And Father came up and looked up in the sky and shaded his eyes with his hand. He says, "That's Roy?" He says, "Yes." He says, "Well, I'm damned." And he turned around and walked in the house.
60 years later, how did you feel when you saw a man land on the moon?
Well, I really, to be honest with you, my feelings was that it was false. I couldn't conceive of it. And I thought it was a sort of a repetition of what was it when Orson Welles scared everybody to death with something. And that ran through my mind. And then I realized, well, you old idiot, this is actually taking place. People are spending millions of dollars and doing all of this sort of thing unless it's actually taking place. So that took me from this little one-propeller airplane of Roy Francis to having in a room just in a span of what? That was almost 60 years. That's all.
On the night of the first moon landing, we were having a cocktail party for 4 or 5 couples, friends of ours. And during the actual moment of landing, I don't think any of them bothered to watch.
I believe that they actually just took it for granted that it was going to happen. They have so much faith in the technology of today that wasn't something they weren't expecting.
Cal and Dolly Corrin. They've just moved into this new house at 12675 Lido Way. Cal works for the county. Dolly is a legal secretary. They have 2 kids in college now. The other 2 are still at home. Cal and Dolly are 47. They were children of the Depression. When they grew up, 16 million Americans were unemployed. Oh, they listened to Fred Allen, the Lone Ranger, The Shadow on radio. Federal budget was $9 billion. A population of 126 million had been projected by 1980. Suburbs were for rich people. A Model A Ford cost $685. Cal and Dolly were going steady.
He was the one who introduced me to the Empire State Building, a native New Yorker, but it took Cal to take me to the Empire State Building. And Central Park, I remember that, and walking up and down Times Square. We'd go to a lot of the shows, and I remember waiting on long, long lines for a lot of the top bands of those days. It was, what, Tommy Dorsey, Cal?
This little piggy went to market. This little piggy made a run. But this little piggy was a boogly woogly piggy, and he boogie woogied all the way home.
It was a white-dominated, male-dominated country, very sure of its institutions and of its morality. The Corrins, they believed in technology and progress. They dreamed of the good life with their family in a house of their own in the suburbs. And they think it's turned out pretty well. The generation of their children is not so sure.
We're so affluent now, and everything we've built towards, all the leisure time that we've been dreaming of for centuries is here. And that leaves you nothing but your mind to live with. And your mind is such a skeptical thing to live with. It's forever knowing what it doesn't want, never knowing what it does want.
Linda Lappin. She was born in 1948, child of the atomic age. She works with a computer.
The computer is a box that does magic things. It's frightening to be on the other side of a computer and feed data in and have it spit it out instantly, because you just feel like you're actually a tool of the computer.
Linda is a product, beneficiary, victim of the revolution of technology. No one has ever lived in a world like this before. There's no one who can tell Linda or show her how to live in this world.
I don't have any heroes. I can't remember anyone in my life that I've ever been able to identify with. I never had one that I believed in longer than a day.
Linda owns one dress. She listens to acid rock and folk. She doesn't want children. She ran away from home when she was a teenager. She became a drug addict. Later, she became a Jesus freak. She was married for 5 years. She wants to get away from the civilization she calls plastic.
Plastic is man-made. It doesn't come from nature, and it's shiny, and it's kind of harsh, and it isn't pliable at all, and it's molded into one thing or another. Things. I'm not sure about them. I don't like being dependent on them, although I am. Yeah, I can't get to Sunnyvale without a car. It isn't easy to, for instance, live without a vacuum cleaner or a, garbage disposal. You have to change your way of life. Or a dishwasher, you have to start washing dishes yourself. Sewing machine, you have to start doing things by hand.
Somebody said, you'd better be sure about what you wish for because you might get it. That seems to be what's happened to us. Technology created all the wonders we dreamed of, and all the side effects that we never thought of. So we're here, in the middle of a revolution that's happened so fast we don't know whether it's bad or good or how to live in it.
Catch me, Mommy! Whoops, do it again!
Mommy's sinuses hurt.
When a cold invades your sinuses and your head throbs, let Dristan tablets help. Look, when the critical sinus areas fill with congestion, cold's infection can breed. Dristan opens stopped-up sinuses, helps drain off congestion, so you feel better fast.
Mom, can you catch me now?
Sure. I feel lots better.
Dristan tablets, strong medicine for sinus cold's miseries.
1 of every 3 people suffers some symptoms of hemorrhoids. And I've found how several outstanding doctors have obtained successful results with Preparation H. In many cases, Preparation H gives prompt temporary relief from the pain and itching of hemorrhoidal tissues. Then, Preparation H actually helps shrink swelling of hemorrhoidal tissues caused by inflammation. There's no other formula like Preparation H, and Preparation H needs no prescription. Doctor-tested Preparation H.
Fire! It's coming again. The eagerly awaited return of Walt Disney's greatest screen achievement, Mary Poppins, winner of 5 Academy Awards. Starring the incomparable Julie Andrews and funny man Dick Van Dyke. The most popular family motion picture of them all. See Walt Disney's Mary Poppins, rated G.
A school full of kids is a school full of cavities, especially during the cavity-prone years, ages 5 to 15. But some kids don't get so many. One reason, Colgate with MFP fluoride. Only your dentist can give teeth a better fluoride treatment than Colgate. Even Colgate can't guarantee just 1 cavity per checkup, but for fewer cavities, get Colgate with MFP. Only your dentist can give teeth a better fluoride treatment than Colgate.
My little Mandy, there's a minister handy, and it sure would be dandy.
It's a time of nostalgia. We want things to be the way they were, or the way we would like to think they were in the good old days.
There's something in me that loves the beauty of the long dresses and the gay 90s, the prettiness about things. And yet, on the other hand, I want the respect of being independent and not needing these things. There's a conflict going on, whether I want to play, which way I want to go.
This much is certainly true. People felt better about themselves in those days. They believed in progress, in the USA, in technology to solve all their problems. New was the same as good. It was an innocent time, a time of beginnings. There was always some place to move on if you didn't like it here. We knew where we were going, or thought we did. Suddenly, we came to the ocean, and there was no more frontier, no place to go. And as the revolution of technology made us more prosperous, the empty spaces began to be filled in. There are the Bullmores out in their backyard. It's a pleasant place. They have a plum tree, a prune tree, but they can hear the jets tearing up the sky overhead and the cars going by on the freeway. It's not like the old days.
I remember so clearly. We could walk out in the evening and you could smell the roses as you walked along. It was not called a garden of the world for nothing. It was lovely.
Right where we are now would be mostly cherries, cherry orchards.
Beautiful, beautiful. You could walk up on the hill and see just acres and acres as far as the other side of the valley. Just white, because the prune blossoms were a beautiful shade of absolute white and feathery looking. It looked as though everything was so soft you could lie down in it, you know.
They were very fragrant before the coming of the gasoline fume. You were quite conscious of them.
But it was still a world then where the problem was just to survive. A man, whether he lived in the country or in the city, was pretty much on his own. Rugged individualism. This is the way the town looked when Lawrence Bullmore first came to the valley. Notice the biggest difference. No cars. What began to change everything we did was the car. Technology again. In 1973, 1 out of 7 Americans worked in a car-connected business. The car changed our work habits, our living habits, our play habits, our sex habits. It created suburbs, changed family life, gave us new freedoms. For every freedom it gave us, there was a price. It let us get out of the city and see things. And it cut up the landscape we were seeing with highways. It opened up a lot of beautiful scenery to us. And then it blighted that scenery with billboards and hot dog stands, used car lots, motels. It made poor people almost as free to move around as rich people. The technology of the motor car made us all kings and queens by the standards of the past, but sometimes the kingdom looked more like a garbage dump. But a lot more people had houses of their own and room to breathe.
My parents were, all they could foresee was hunger and coldness and not having the basic needs. And my generation's never been without those. See, you can't be thankful for something that you've always had. It's like saying, well, thank God I've got 2 legs. Well, how, you know, what was it like with only one? Maybe it was all right, you don't know.
You see, there's the problem. What one generation struggles to get, remembering what it was like before, the next generation knows nothing about. Just assumes it was always like that.
When our grandchildren came down here, we've had lamps just because they're antique pieces and we keep them. And one time they asked, the children asked them, well, will we light the lights? So we have one that's on a bracket over the sink. So we lit that light and we lit the lamp and put it on the table. And they said, well, we can't see, we can't see. I said, well, that's all we had. That's all the light we had.
Lawrence Bullmore could walk to work. Sometimes he came home for lunch. The Corrins have 3 cars. When they invented suburbs, they invented something called commuting. This is so the family can live where there is grass and trees, and the kids can go to good schools. Thus, technology allows them to have what they used to have before technology. There's a lot of argument about what happened to the family in the neighborhood. One thing that happened was that people became so mobile that they began to think of the company instead of the town as their home. It was easy to move where the job was.
We started out in St. Louis when I graduated from school. We relocated to the East Coast of Baltimore for a better job opportunity. Moved to Denver for a promotion within the company. From Denver, we moved to Southern California for a better job with another company. We were in Southern California for a couple years. We moved back to Colorado. We were in Colorado for a short period of time, then moved to Northern California and to the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area.
My father, who was a skilled laborer, was given an opportunity to move with the factory from the city of New York to Detroit. And at that time, it was during the height of the Depression, when jobs were at an absolute premium, and he turned it down. Because the family, his friends, his brothers, his sisters, the whole bit of living in New York was more important than moving, as opposed to our generation. Sure, we didn't want to leave our families, but that wasn't a consideration.
So they came to streets like this in search of the good life. And it did not totally turn out the way it was supposed to.
It was incredible how sane everything was. The sameness of everything was really striking. The streets after 7 o'clock looked deserted. Everyone was locked up in their house, and until 7 o'clock the next morning, you really scratched to see a sign of life.
On the block where Cal and Dolly Corrin live, the only thing that really brings them together is a relic of the past.
This is the last line of the Southern Pacific. It's just a freight train. Unfortunately, it isn't long enough, because by the time they look like they're really enjoying it, it's gone.
In a simpler time, life was more personal. Martha Bullmore knew her vegetable man, her iceman, her milkman. She even knew the beer wagon driver. She made her own pie crust, her own ice cream in a hand-turned freezer, made her jams and jellies.
When I first started cooking for my family, I would have to stop what I was doing around 3 or 3:30 every day and think, now I'm going to start fixing dinner and prepare and, you know, get the vegetables and salad and so forth and whatever. Today, with the modern freezing packaged foods, you can start cooking at 5 and have a relatively good dinner on by, you know, half an hour, 45 minutes.
So we're caught in this dilemma. In the old days, it was more human. Now, technology has made things better, but more inhuman. You remember the old family doctor?
When we were children, we had a family doctor. And when he was needed, he always made a house call. And the doctor knew the family. He knew the sicknesses and the ills of everybody in the family.
You'll have to call back next Friday the 1st.
We have health plan now. You call, you make an appointment with a reception clerk. You're given a date and a time. You take a seat in the waiting room, and maybe you spend 6 or 7 minutes with a particular physician.
I would say for our purposes, it's been 100% better. And then we have been fortunate to have specialists take care of the children at different times when it was needed, which we probably couldn't have afforded.
At least at the clinic, you have somebody to talk to, even though the doctor may never have seen you before or ever see you again.
These don't hurt that much.
It is not only, or even mostly, that technology has changed this landscape around us. It has affected the terrain of our minds and souls as well. For one thing, it's turned us into numbers. Social Security, driver's license, medical insurance, ID, credit card, bank account, charge account. That is the world technology has given Linda. We haven't seen much of her for a while. We've been talking about how technology has changed this landscape. She was born into these changes, saw them from a younger view, rejected many, and thought of others differently. She can think of a computer with affection.
The one test, it was a paragraph of propaganda for the machine. Put it in to see if it could feed it through and duplicate it. And it tried. And it was like a little kid learning to talk, and he's memorizing a speech, and when he gets to the end, he just can't remember what the rest of it was. And the last 3 lines were just solid A's. When it pooped out right about there, and that was the end of that. I was thrilled to know that I still had more together than that machine. That it's, I had one on it, that I could at least remember that much and do that. And knowing, too, that it had fallibilities, just like humans.
Okay, that covers that. And we'll put this over here.
And anyway, once the party gets going, no one will notice the rug.
Fred, we need the glory.
With Glory Rug Shampoo, you can clean your whole rug this afternoon. Entertain guests tonight.
I love wood furniture. That's why I've designed and built furniture like this most of my life. This crib I made for my daughter when she was born. You know, the furniture I built, I always gave it rubbed-in paste wax beauty. But Johnson Wax showed me how to get paste wax beauty instantly. With New Pledge. This table was rubbed with paste wax for 12 minutes and a lot of muscle. Now I'll dust this one with New Pledge. You know, Pledge now has an enriched formula containing key ingredients found in Johnson paste wax. To me, it's a dead ringer for the paste wax shine. So, for the rubbed-in beauty of paste wax instantly, dust with New Pledge.
Pick up Plymouth.
Cleanup time.
Pick up price.
Cleanup prices.
Pick a winner.
You're way ahead.
Here's a penny pinch and cleanup price.
Wouldn't you rather sleep on a king? Ortho's factory direct price always means the complete set. Mattress and box springs plus Ortho pack and double bonus. Always more for your money at Ortho.
This big screen, 19-inch black and white portable television is only $89 during White Front's Super Buy-Up sale. For low TV prices, think of White Front.
Paul Moyer with the news, weeknights at 11.
The wedding was a large wedding, large Italian wedding, 200 to 300 people. We had a band, and there was dancing. I wore a white dress, and my sisters were in attendance.
Is that the kind of wedding you want for your daughter?
When she was little, yes, I thought that was what she should have, and that's what I had hoped that she'd have. It certainly wouldn't be what she would want today, and I don't think I would want that today. For one thing, we don't know 200 people.
The Corrins grew up in a system that was working despite the Depression. A system they believed in. And their part in it was all neatly laid out.
My father said, "You're excellent at math, you have a scientific bent. Engineering is the profession for you." I think that a lot of the instability of the Depression years and my family circumstances when I was growing up had a lot to do with my concern for establishing myself in a good, solid profession.
That's how everybody thought in those days, all our friends. We lived in several apartments. The first one was a bedroom with a small kitchen that they had made out of a closet. We had to share a bathroom, and it was just a bedroom in this person's house. We had a Murphy bed that came out of the wall, and Cal did all his homework, studying, etc., in that room, and at night we'd pull the bed down, and that was our bedroom.
When Cal went to college, it was a privilege of the bright and the rich. Only 15% of his contemporaries went to college. All 4 of his children expect to go to college. Half the people their age will go to college. But the catch is, very few of them will be as sure of the future as Cal and Dolly were.
I wanted to be a wife and mother. I looked forward to the day when I could stop working, just stay home. It was something that I always wanted to do, and I can remember very definitely in those days being very unhappy at work and waiting for the time when Cal would finish school. And we had Christy, and then I stopped work.
Now it's 1973. Cal has a good job, nice house, fine family. Everything he dreamed of back in 1945. How does he feel about what he did?
I don't think I gave a great deal of thought to evaluating my own personal talents or likes and dislikes when I was choosing a profession. I think I might take an entirely different route toward a profession if I were choosing again.
I had a lot of, what I found, a lot of time on my hands just really accomplishing nothing. I had done a lot of League of Women Voters and PTA and church work, bridge in the afternoon. Just found myself at 5 o'clock first beginning to get supper, you know, really not accomplishing anything.
What happened to the Corrins? What happened to us all? The technology that changed this street changed their lives. Now, let's look around this neighborhood where the Corrins live. This light wouldn't have been here during the Bullmore's time. These cars wouldn't have been here, nor would that garage with the electric eye door.
Our son-in-law, who is a master electrician, he came down and installed a remote control door opener to our garage. Well, Martha and I stood out there, and we nearly wore it out the first day, shutting it, opening it, shutting it, and opening it. It meant nothing to our grandchildren. They had seen hundreds of them.
Dolly's mother could never have imagined a house like this.
And if somebody comes to the house and says to us, listen, we're faced with a power crisis in this area, then you've got to cut your appliances. You know, we'd probably go into a flat panic trying to figure out what we could do without it.
Now, what do all those appliances mean to Dolly? Well, they've made her life easier. But technology has made Dolly Corrin's life as a woman more complicated. Now she has time to think about what else she'd like to do with her life, what kind of work she'd like to do, what would have meaning for her. Technology has made the work of men less physical, often more automatic, more boring. Often they weren't sure what they made, or for whom, or why. The job was secure. You had tenure, you had union seniority, you had unemployment insurance, medical insurance, old age pension, Social Security. That was a big change.
When my father retired, when his father, if you hadn't saved some money or had some income like they did from the orchard or the vineyard or whatever they had, I don't know what people did.
And you just took it for granted that you had to take care of yourself.
You did.
Yeah.
And I think to a certain extent it was a matter of pride. You know, there's something about it that we were brought up as like the Rover boys to stand on our own feet, you know, and take what came along.
That feeling of pride did something for a man. And when he no longer saw himself as the protector and provider, that feeling began to change. For instance, at home, a man no longer felt quite the way his father had.
At my own home, my father was the patriarch. There's no getting away from that. Whatever father said was law as far as we were concerned. As long as we lived under his roof, we obeyed our father.
There was a day, not too long ago, when we had popular household aphorisms. Spare the rod and spoil the child. Children should be seen and not heard. We don't have those anymore. The technological revolution has something to do with that, too. Observe the Corin kids. They don't milk the cow or chop the wood. There aren't many chores around the house that can't be done by pushing a button. It's not necessary for them to go to work for the family to survive. When they're old enough, they have a car. Lawrence Bullmore didn't have one. Neither did their father. There wasn't a teenage culture then. Teenagers were needed in the labor market, and so technology changed them too.
The difference that I found between my childhood and the kids today, the home life was mainly geared to the adult life. As our children grew up, we found more and more that we were doing what they wanted to do.
And then there is probably the most startling technological development of all.
The pill. Well, in my day, of course, there was no such thing as the pill. There was no such thing as discussing that there could be a pill or anything involved. We were just, told no sex, period. The whole subject of premarital sex and the idea of premarital sex was just unheard of. You didn't discuss it, you didn't participate. If you did, or the person that you thought did was immediately branded as a bad girl or a streetwalker or there just was no reason or no possibility that this could be part of your life until you got married.
If you stand in this street, you can see what the revolution of technology has done to the family. You won't see any grandparents living on this block. Not many of these people expect to live here all their lives. Houses aren't permanent the way they were. People will be moving on, up, down, to other cities, other jobs, going where the job is. Look at Linda. She wouldn't live in a tract house. She feels more in common with Martha Bullmore than Dolly Corin. She likes to bake bread and sew her own clothes and walk in the country. But she's not like Martha Bullmore either. She wouldn't be a housewife. She wants to be free. As she would say, she wants her life to be meaningful, relevant, fulfilled. She never heard of a sweatshop. She never heard of being fired without severance. She never saw unemployed men in tin shacks in the city. What's gone wrong then? Why do the Corins envy Linda's generation? Why does Linda want to run away from their safe, secure, comfortable life? Perhaps because we've found that although technology does a great many things for us, it doesn't do everything. It cannot make us wise. It cannot make us happy. When Cal Corin was a young man, smoke coming from stacks meant prosperity. For his kids, it means pollution. A little less than 100 years ago, oil was discovered in Pennsylvania. In Linda Lappin's lifetime, we may run out of it.
Testimony before the Senate Select Watergate Committee, former presidential counsel John Dean today gave details of what he says is President Nixon's...
It's baffling in 1973 to be of Dolly and Cal Corin's generation. That came so far and now is not quite sure where it is or where it's going or if anyone wants to go there after all.
First letter dated April 16. 14th read, Dear Mr. President, in view of
These late tours are getting to me.
Have some coffee, sweetheart.
Half a cup again.
That's your quota, Sarge. Agreed to cut down on caffeine.
I can get ballistic tests in a couple of hours. Can't someone make a coffee I like without caffeine?
Consider it done. Ground roast brim decaffeinated coffee is deliciously rich. Also available freeze-dried.
Ah, thank goodness for brim.
Have some more, and some more.
If you're starting out to see the USA, you may not get very far because there's a serious gasoline shortage. Quite a few gas stations have closed, and a lot that are open don't have a lot of gas. So if you have a big car, you may have a big problem. But if you have a Volkswagen, which gets about twice the gas mileage as the average car, you can leave your problem behind.
Denture wearers, wake up to the cleaning power of a million tiny scrub brushes. That's Polident tablets. Green Polident has Dentrol. It gives Polident cleaning power like a million tiny scrub brushes, scrubbing away film, odor, and even stubborn stains between teeth. They don't stop till dentures are clean. Try Polident tablets or economical powder. Polident cleans like a million tiny scrub brushes.
You are about to witness a crime. Two women on vacation and carrying a lot of money.
Stop that man! Hey! Somebody, stop him!
Protect your vacation. Instead of cash, carry American Express traveler's checks. If they're stolen or lost, you can get them replaced usually on the same day. Insist on American Express traveler's checks.
Work was different when Lawrence Bullmore came to this valley. Men worked 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. For that, they were paid $12.
When I was working for the San Jose Water Company, why, the boys that were digging ditches, why, they were supervised by the man that knew what a day's work was. I always remember a man by the name of Emmett Sellers was our foreman. He'd come into San Jose at the headquarters and he'd get the checks. Jones, Smith, Boomore, call you up. Billy, you're through. That's all he said. You've been loitering on the job, leaning on your shovel, as we say, keeping the shovel handle along. He knew it. You hadn't cut the buck. There was nothing more said about it. You walked off the job, and that was it. You were through. Then I went to work on the Sacramento River. I worked as a fireman and an oiler. But the last boat ran across San Francisco Bay with passengers on the 28th day of July 1958. But it was a passing of a wonderful era.
Cal Corin went to college so that he would not have to work with his hands. The American dream. A civilization in which the machines would do the work. People like Cal would tell the machines what to do and have time to use their minds.
Some of these paintings you see here are mine. I like to design and build furniture. I have the free time to do this. I don't feel compelled to do it.
Thus, technology made it possible for Cal Corin to make a table and chairs for his dining room. Technology made it possible for Linda to have choices in her life, endless choices of jobs, of places to live, of things to do, of places to go.
One of my roommate's favorite games was get out on the road and stick your thumb out and go down the road wherever it took you. to see whatever there was to see, because you weren't really sure, and you thought if you planned anything, it was going to disappoint you. Purpose is something my generation is totally lacking in.
We have become, again, a nation on the road. It was this way once a century ago when Americans were still pushing west, always looking beyond the next hill, until, like the bull moose, they came up against the Pacific Ocean. For the first time, there was no next hill. What are they looking for now as they drown in their music, their drugs, and their religion? Perhaps some new hill to cross. If nothing else, we've always been curious. We've always been explorers. Technology changed the way we perceived things. We didn't go places. Places came to us. It hardly seems remarkable anymore. Once, every new machine was astounding.
I'm going back that moment now as let's see. It'd have to be about 70 years ago. I was reading not too long ago, I was going back in the newspaper files, you see, and there was an item from our district where this family, this mother, had given up a party on the 4th of July for her son and daughter, and that they were entertained by records on a phonograph, and that was enough to make the newspaper.
A generation grew up on television. By the time Linda Lappin was a teenager, she had seen and heard everything. Her school was commercials, drive-in movies, rock festivals, and all the news was bad. It flooded in so fast she couldn't keep track of it. She wanted to put her hands over her ears and close her eyes. It was just too much, too fast, too shattering for a species that for 4/5 of its time on this earth has lived in caves. Too much that more than half the knowledge we have has been accumulated in the lifetime of living men. That 95% of the scientists there have ever been in this world are still alive. This little pocket computer, a scientist in 1900 couldn't even have conceived of it. But the technology they created and the things that followed created a flood that nobody could stop. For a long time, nobody wanted to. It clothed us, housed us, and fed us better than ever before. Entertained us, informed us, gave us playthings, provided us with things we needed, provided us with things we hadn't needed until they were provided. If we had any problems, technology would solve them. We would just produce more, invent something new. And then something went wrong. Suddenly, technology was polluting the rivers, spoiling the land. What Cal Corrin dreamed of became a nightmare for Linda Lappin. The technology that made work easier also created a feeling of powerlessness in people. Linda's generation couldn't find anyone human to communicate with.
Most kids steal things, especially my generation's notorious for shoplifting. Because the store isn't a person. You're not taking it from a friend. You're taking it from a thing, from a big monopoly that you don't know what it is. Everything is that way. When you work in a job, you don't really do your best because you don't even know who you're doing it for or where it's going or what it is.
Music is the newsletter of a generation that finds it hard to communicate in words. Technology has transported them over the next hill into a terrain of the mind and soul no generation has ever known, where no old truths are certain. Family, marriage, children, work. They are strangers in a strange land where the machine is both good and evil, dictator and servant, and it's not always clear which is which. In the last 10 years in America, the number of mental patients has increased 50%. Alcoholism is up, drug addiction is up. In some western states, the divorce rate is now 70%. Thus, we begin to drop out of the technological society that was to bless us.
So we're back to this street where the prune trees once blossomed white as far as the eye could see, where they now have this shopping center they call the Prune Yard. Linda there, it's easy to sympathize with her fear of the future and her longing for a past she never really knew.
I read or see in movies or things about how things used to be and how simple they seem to be and how complicated things seem to be now. Something inside of me wants to say, this is far enough, this is good enough, let's stop here. And I want to stop progress somehow before it goes too far.
I guess the biggest change that's taken place in the way we live is the fact that I feel pretty free to do what I choose to do. As far as I'm concerned, this is the best of all time because it's the only time that I'll ever experience.